Nobody tells you that the self you built to survive will not go quietly. It doesn't die the way you imagine. One clean night, one breaking, one dawn. It dies the way a language dies. Slowly, fluently, still able to speak, but with fewer and fewer people left who understand it. The mask doesn't fall off. It just stops fitting a face you no longer have. And what nobody prepares you for is the strangest part of the whole thing. You will grieve it. You will grieve the liar. You will stand at the funeral of the person who lied for you all those years, and you will find, to your horror, that you loved him. There's something dishonest in the way we talk about the false self. We talk about it like a costume, something bolted on from outside, something a bad childhood pressed onto you, something that could be peeled away if you were only brave enough. As though underneath there's a clean, waiting, authentic person sitting in the dark, patient as furniture, ready to be discovered. That's not how it happened. The false self was not imposed on you. It was built by you. It was your first act of genius. You were small, and the room you lived in had a shape, and you learned that shape. Where the sharp edges were, which laugh was safe, which silence bought you an hour of peace. You were an architect before you could spell, and what you built worked. That's the part that gets left out. It worked. Jung called it the persona, from the Latin, the mask worn by an actor in the ancient theater, the mask through which the voice came, not a disguise, an instrument. He was careful about this, more careful than the people who quote him. The persona is not a lie. It's a compromise between the individual and society about what a person should appear to be. It's the handshake. It's the thing you wear to the funeral of someone you didn't like. Everyone has one. Everyone needs one. A person without a persona is not free. A person without a persona is a person who can't function in a room with other people in it. So the problem was never that you had one. The problem is what you did next. You were rewarded. That's the whole trap in one sentence. You were rewarded, and the reward was real. The version of you that stayed calm during the argument got peace. The version that got straight A's got a hand on the shoulder. The version that made himself small and useful and easy to be around got to stay in the room. And every reward was a small deposit into a self that wasn't you, until one day you looked at your bank account of a life and realized you'd been paying into someone else's retirement for 30 years. The false self is not a failure. It's a success that outlived its usefulness. You didn't wear a mask because you were weak. You wore it because it was the only face that ever got answered. And this is why it doesn't come off. This is why every article that tells you to just be your authentic self is speaking a language you cannot hear. You can't drop something that's holding you up. You can't take off the thing that's been doing the load bearing. Jung had a phrase for what happens when the persona becomes total. He said that a person can come to identify so completely with the mask that the mask begins to think it's alive. He called it identification with the persona, and he described it in a way that should chill anyone who has ever been very, very good at their job. Such a person, he said, is entirely without an inner life, successful on the outside, empty as a stage set on the inside, all facade, no rooms behind it. You know this person. You may have been this person at Thanksgiving, and the terrible mercy of it is that it can go on for decades. There's no alarm. There's no diagnosis. There's just a very functional man in a very good coat doing everything right in a faint, unnameable sense. Usually around 3 a.m, usually in a hotel room in a city he doesn't live in, that he has never once been in the room with another human being. So how does something like that die? not the way the internet says. The internet has a story about this, and the story is a lie, and the lie is comfortable, so it sells. The story goes, there is a breakdown, and the breakdown is a breakthrough, and you emerge blinking and radiant and gluten-free, and now you are your true self, and there's a course you can buy. What actually happens is closer to erosion. Jung wrote about what he called psychic death, and he chose that word carefully. Not transformation, not transition, death, a thing that ends and does not come back. In the old alchemical texts he spent his life reading, this stage had a name, the nigredo, the blackening, the stage where the material is broken down into an undifferentiated dark mass, no shape, no name, no promise. The alchemists put it first for a reason. Nothing comes before it. Nothing skips it. And here is what they understood that we've forgotten. The nigredo is not a passage. It is a place. It has weather. It has a length. It does not know you have plans. The dying starts small. It starts with a sentence. You're at dinner and someone asks you the question you've answered 1,000 times. What do you do? How have you been? Are you happy? And you open your mouth and the answer comes out perfectly, on time, in the correct tone, and you hear it from somewhere behind your own head. Like a recording, like a man in the next room saying your lines better than you could. That's the first death, not a crisis, a hearing. You didn't stop believing the answer. Something worse. You noticed the answer was automatic. And once you notice that a thing is automatic, you can never unnotice it. The machinery becomes visible, and a mask that you can see from the inside is no longer a face. It's just cloth. Then comes the second death, and this one is slower and much lonelier because it happens in the presence of people who love you. They keep talking to him. That's the part nobody warned you about. Your mother calls, and she's calling for the version of you that always answers on the second ring and says everything's fine. Your friend texts, and he's texting the guy who's always up for it. Your colleague asks for the thing, and he's asking the man who never says no. And the man who never says no is dying. And nobody in the room has noticed, and they're all still addressing him by name. You will spend years being loved as someone you have already stopped being. And you'll answer. Of course you'll answer. That's the loneliest sentence in this whole thing. You will keep performing a dead man out of kindness, because to stop is to be cruel to people who did nothing wrong except learn you at your most convincing. Jung understood something about this that has almost never made it into the popular version of him. He did not think the collapse of the persona was liberation. He thought it was danger. He wrote that when the persona dissolves, what floods in is not the true self, it's the unconscious, raw, undifferentiated. Everything you shoved down there for 30 years to keep the mask smooth, arriving all at once without an appointment. He called what could follow an inflation, or worse, and he watched it destroy people. Not everyone who loses the mask finds a face. Some just lose the mask. That's the sentence the wellness industry cannot sell, so it doesn't say it. This does not always work out. The third death is the one that has no witness at all. It's the day you realize you don't know what you want for lunch. I mean it exactly like that. Not the grand questions. Those you can still perform. You have paragraphs for those. It's the small ones. What music do you actually like when nobody's in the car? Whether you want to go to the thing what you do on a Saturday if no one ever asked about it afterward. The false self had answers for all of these because the false self wasn't answering the question. It was answering the room. Take the room away, and the whole apparatus goes quiet, and what's underneath isn't a voice. It's a silence that doesn't even know what it wants for lunch. And notice what's happening in that kitchen, because it's not what you think. You're not experiencing an absence of preference. That would almost be peaceful. What you're experiencing is a machine that used to answer instantly, still running, still trying, and returning nothing. The lights come on. The mechanism engages, and there's no output. It's the specific horror of a familiar system failing at a task it has never failed at, doing it quietly, in your own house, over a question that a 4-year-old could answer without thinking. Because the false self never once asked you what you wanted. It read the room and produced the answer the room needed, and it did this so fast and so well that you mistook the output for a preference. You thought that was you liking things. It wasn't. It was you calculating things. And when there's no room to read, no face across the table, no tone to match, no cost to compute, the calculation returns empty, and you understand for the first time that you have never in your life simply wanted something. You have only ever solved for it. That's the nigredo. Not fire. Not a dark night of the soul with a soundtrack. A Tuesday. Standing in your own kitchen at 41 years old, holding the refrigerator door open, genuinely unable to answer the smallest question a human being can be asked. Here's what the story leaves out, because the story needs a villain. The false self was good at things you were not good at. He could talk to your father, 20 minutes, easy, about nothing, and both of you came out of it fine. And now you sit across from that man, and there's a silence in your chest where the script used to be. And you'd give a year of your life for one more minute of the fluency you used to hate. He got you the job. He was charming at the interview. He knew exactly how much of you to show, and he showed precisely that much and not a gram more, and it worked. And you have a career because of a man you've spent 2 years trying to kill. He made your friends. Every one of them. Every single person who loves you was introduced to you by him. That's the grief nobody has language for. Not the grief of the mask, the grief of what the mask built. You can't burn the house down and keep the rooms. And so you find yourself sitting in a life that a stranger assembled for you, using your name with your face, and every good thing in it is a gift from someone you're supposed to be glad is dead. He was a liar. He was also the only one of us who ever knew how to be loved. And people will say, the kind who've read one book, they'll say the false self was just protecting you. And now you're safe, and you don't need him anymore. Say that in the kitchen at 3 a.m. Say it to the man who can't answer the phone. Say it when your mother asks how you're doing, and the truthful answer would take 4 hours and destroy her afternoon. And the false self could have handled it in 11 words, kindly, and everyone would have slept. He was useful. He is dying anyway. Both are true. Nothing about that is fair, and no framework redeems it. Jung's word for the goal of all this was individuation. And I want to be very careful, because that word gets used like a finish line. He didn't mean it that way. He meant something closer to a lifelong argument between the person you are and the people you're made of. Not a destination, a relationship. Something you're never done with, that has no graduation, that ends when you do. There is no ceremony. There is no morning where you wake up and it's over. There's just this. Fewer and fewer sentences that you didn't mean. I want to stay here a moment, in the place where every other version of this story pulls out early. Because they all do. Every one of them. They walk you right up to the edge of the thing, and then they hand you a metaphor. The caterpillar dissolves into a soup and becomes a butterfly. The Japanese pottery filled with gold at the fractures. The forest that needed the fire. And there's a reason those metaphors are everywhere. And the reason is not that they're true. The reason is that we cannot look at an ending without immediately, compulsively converting it into a beginning. We can't tolerate a full stop. So we sell each other commas. But look at what those images are actually saying. Kintsugi is beautiful because the bowl broke. Fine. But nobody in that story asked the bowl. The bowl was a bowl. It held things. Now it's an object of contemplation on a shelf in a room where nobody eats. We call that healing because gold is expensive, and the alternative is admitting that something was destroyed, and no amount of aesthetics undoes it. And the butterfly, that one's worse because it's almost true. And almost true is the most efficient lie there is. Yes, the caterpillar dissolves. But we tell that story from the other side. We tell it from the wings. Nobody tells it from inside the chrysalis. In the dark, in the middle, when you are neither thing, when you're not a caterpillar anymore, and you are not a butterfly yet, and you are, in the most literal biological sense, soup. There is no evidence in the soup that this has ever worked for anyone. That's where people actually live, not on either side, in the soup. For years, every story about breaking open is told by someone who already knows how it ended. That's why it's a comfort. That's also why it's useless to you tonight. So I'm not going to tell you it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth it. The people who say it's worth it are all, without exception, speaking from the far side, and the far side has a way of forgetting what the middle cost. Survivors write the philosophy. That's not wisdom. That's just who's left to hold the pen. What I'll say instead is smaller and I think truer. Something is ending. It has a name, and the name is not your ego, and it's not your trauma, and it's not any of the flat clinical words we use to make a death sound like a procedure. The name is the person you were when you were trying your absolute hardest to be loved. That's what's dying. That kid, the one who figured out the room, who read the face across the table faster than any adult in his life ever read his, who was so good at it that nobody, not one person in 40 years, ever looked at him and thought, that's a child doing something no child should have to do. He's the false self. He was also the smartest, bravest thing you ever were. And I want to be precise about the cruelty here because it's easy to miss. And it's the whole shape of the thing. He isn't dying because he failed. He's dying because he succeeded. He got you out. He got you through the house, through the years, through every room where the truth would have cost more than you had. He carried you the entire way, without once being thanked, without once being seen. And the payment for that, the actual payment, the one that comes due somewhere around your 40th year, is that you turn around and look at him and understand that he can't come with you. That's the deal nobody signed and everybody pays. He is competent. He is exhausted. He has done nothing wrong. And there is no version of the rest of your life that includes him. I don't have anything to put over that. There's no frame that makes it land softer. It's just true. And it's true for a lot of people tonight. And most of them are being told right now by someone well-meaning that they should be grateful for the growth. And he doesn't get a funeral because who would come? Everyone who'd attend only ever met him. There's no method here. I don't have one. And the people who have one are selling something. But there's a thing I've noticed, and I'll leave it with you. And you can do whatever you want with it, including nothing. The false self dies in public and is buried in private. In public, the calls, the dinners, the meetings, he keeps working. Reduced hours. He still knows the lines. He can still do 20 minutes on nothing. He's just not living there anymore. The lights are on and the house is empty and the mail still comes. But there's a moment, sometimes late, and it doesn't announce itself, where somebody asks you something ordinary and you feel the answer arrive, the smooth one, the one that's worked 1,000 times, and it's right there. It's already in your mouth, and you just don't say it. You say the other thing, the clumsier one, the one that comes out badly and lands wrong and leaves a silence in the room that you have no idea what to do with. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's what a death looks like from the inside. Not fire, not gold in the cracks. One sentence you didn't perform, and the small, unbearable quiet afterward while you wait to find out if you're still allowed to be here. You will not get a sign. You won't feel free. Mostly you'll feel like you did it wrong. You'll know he's gone, not when you feel whole, but when you stop rehearsing. The old alchemists, staring into their black mass, waiting for something, anything, to happen. They had a phrase for the state of the material during the nigredo. They called it the massa confusa, the confused mass. And the honest thing about their manuscripts, the thing you notice if you actually read them instead of quoting them, is how much of the text is just waiting. Page after page of tending a fire, watching nothing, describing the same darkness in slightly different words. Some of those men waited their whole lives and never saw the next stage. They wrote it down anyway. They described a gold they never held. I think about them more than I probably should. Maybe that's the only honest thing anyone can say about this. That there are people right now, tonight, in the dark part of it, tending something they will never see finish. And that this doesn't make them fools. It makes them the only ones telling the truth. The mask is on the table. Your face hasn't arrived yet. Nobody said it would. Some nights, the most honest thing you can do is sit with the thing that's dying and not call it a beginning. That's all. Stay if you want. It's dark here, but it's not empty.